Made my way down to Parliament that same day by foot, got an assessment, and all I found was love, joy.
Awesome.
It was like a unity of people coming together with a purpose cause, with a purpose. And within 2-3 days of me just going back and forth, I got a sense of, I heard a lot of platforms talked on the weekend from people, because the way it was set up was, looked like the first 3 weeks there, or 2.5 weeks, it was during the week pretty quiet, weekend
crazy. Yeah.
So this was leading up to this weekend to be a crazy weekend. And you can tell in the early part of the week I was getting my feet wet, trying to establish my grounds, because I wanted to get to the media command center. That was my mission.
Okay.
I went there with a purpose because I have a few messages that I wanted to give. And one of them was Christopher James.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Who I believe a warrior call. That's where I think the solution. I heard a lot of people talk on that stage. I heard the ex-premier of Newfoundland that drew up our Charter of Our Rights. And
Brian Peckford.
Yes, and I've heard many other speakers. I heard Randy. I've heard Maxie. I see Maxie and Randy in Toronto. I seen them at Sport Credit. I've heard all these platforms, but I didn't hear very many solutions. I heard them speaking of the evil that's in this world, which I think is what's the message out of Ottawa that we're getting right now with this tyranny that's happened. So from my experience there, it was love, there was a lot of hugs, but as the tide turned, and that would have been on Wednesday night, I was fortunate enough to spend all morning, all night until 4:30 in the morning at a Coventry at 302 with the staff. Everybody was kind of gone. It was quiet, about a half dozen to dozen guys there, and I got a good sense of the feeling of what people's emotions were. And
was that the same night when
No. When who?
The chief, the Ottawa chief.
No, that already had happened.
Okay.
That already had happened. Yeah, that already had happened.
Wednesday,
that already had happened. So that might have been, or maybe earlier in the day, Wednesday, that day.
Yeah.
So that night I spent 4:30 in the morning there.
Right.
So I went home, and when I went home that night, everything was cool. I got up in the afternoon and then decided just to go stuck around the home and went to have dinner back at 302 that night. I got there at 8 o'clock, spent there about 3.5 hours, left around midnight, and that's when the tide changed. As I drove home that night in the snowstorm, there were point checks, hundreds of them around the city.
They brought them all in at night, the cowards.
Yes, they set it up that evening. So then when I got up on Friday morning, I went down to Parliament. It was around 11:30, and when I came down from the northern part of the downtown core into the main red zone area, they already set up perimeters 2 blocks from where I was staying. So now instead of being a 20-minute walk to where they would start to have some of the perimeters, they already moved them up to where I was.
Oh, wow.
So I already was hampered with my own car, because I took my own car that morning. I only got 2 blocks and I parked it. Couldn't go any further. So as I went in there, I started seeing that areas there, they were towing trucks already and started bringing in heavy equipment.
Yeah, they did nasty stuff.
So as I proceeded down to Wellington by the stage area, then you started seeing the movement of police started coming down, and they had Wellington shut off by where the horse situation happened.
So when did you leave there?
I left around 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
On what day?
That would have been Saturday afternoon, 4 o'clock.
Okay.
We tried to ascertain which towing companies were being utilized.
So as I walked by at 11:30 in the morning, there were 3 or 4 big trucks of police that were for rigs. Didn't see any private ones, but I saw the half dozen or so of small independent ones with no naming on their trucks, and they were hiding their faces. I wanted to take videotape of that, but I didn't because I had to walk through a convoy of cops. So I just kept it cool. I wanted to get through where I wanted to go. So, because they didn't stop nobody on foot, because they were just worrying about sealing anything coming in from the physical vehicles, but on foot you were able to move around. So I was able to go. On the way out at 4 o'clock, when I saw that they had, so the way I came in at the end of Parliament, there's sort of like a big area that kind of forks off in three different areas.
Yeah.
So when I was on Wellington, by the stages on this side, so as I got to that corner, they had it all sealed off. Anybody that was on Wellington could not go that section any longer.
And they kept making it smaller and collapsing the perimeter.
But at that point, that's where they had made this barrier. So I realized now I had to make a decision. Do I walk back now to the main stage, go up Metcalfe and go all the way back around to go home? Or that would have been my only choice. So I started walking this way, but then I stopped after about 50 meters and said, you know what? That's a long way around. I looked over to my right, I see these paths. So you know what, I'm going to take one of these paths. And then what ended up happening was I just went around them and back to where I wanted to go on my travels.
So were you in any position where the officers were there with
I was there, I saw what was there in front of me. I have a clip on that.
Right.
That I saw. So I decided to leave from there. And this is before the horses came down. So when I left from there, I walked around the building where I saw this path, and it got me back on Elkin Road and to cross over the bridge, right? So as I got there, I passed that, which was the only presence of cops was around the truck void.
Right.
That they had surrounded, and that line they had blocked.
Yeah.
So as I got up to the bridge to cross over the canal, they had the Toronto police had their wagons for their horses, so the horses came from Toronto. And then as I was walking over the bridge, I got a clip I can show for 30 seconds. They were coming back down on horseback. Yeah. So as they passed me, that's when they ended up down to the area where I had just left. So my belief, guys, to show you my thoughts, to share you my thoughts, I think what actually happened in that video was they proceeded down. They came down to the truck area where it was surrounded.
Right.
The horses surrounded them, and then they came in between that barrier of the cops around the trucks and the barriers they had there blocked for the people, and the cops standing. Well, they weren't cops. They were uniforms of the UN.
Yeah,
they were not officers of either of the police forces in Ontario, which I saw quite a bit from different regions. So I believe they came around, and I think they wanted, their intent was to stop in front of the crowd and the police in back of the police. But what ended up happening, I believe, they came in, maybe their pace might have been maybe not the right pace, but they came in, and the horses got, because of the noise levels, got a little bit agitated, and you can see they jumped forward. This is what I'm seeing in the video, that they jumped forward, and I think they kind of lost control of that situation, and they went through the crowd. Because going through that crowd, they actually went through a section where there were people and police there, and they went through both.
But they didn't need to bring the horses.
No, they didn't need to. Yeah. No, they probably didn't. But I'm just kind of give you.
Why would you drive a tank, right?
Right.
Through a public street.
So
a horse is a tank.
Yes, their intentions were there right off the hop that they were going to disperse and handle. So I watched a lot of videos overnight that was live. Dreaders did a great job. Pat King's crew, Crazy George, right till yesterday apparently got arrested, did a hell of a job of just motivating the crowd down there. Be peaceful, but be in their faces and let them know it was wrong. And people overall that lasted until this morning and this afternoon. Today's Saturday, yeah. This morning, this afternoon, yesterday, the afternoon and last night, and apparently to this morning, I still saw some video of the last remaining crowds that made it in there, but that would have been the end of it. They have full control of the downtown in the city. Yeah, it's all fenced off. Yeah. My experience, I wouldn't trade it for the world, but I can say this: the mission was accomplished. The people of Canada had to stand up and take notice what our Prime Minister and the
Fancy
cabinet,
socks.
Fancy Socks, Castro, whatever you want to call him. What he's done, he's pushed this too far. The people have to see this, and the rest of the world has definitely been seeing this. Actually, I think the white hats of the military regime that's doing our best interest is actually very happy at this convoy. And you can timestamp January 29th, 2020. The world stood up and took notice that Canadians, for all the sorries and that we are, stood up for ourselves and really showed what we were made of. Because you can't push a Canuck with a hockey stick very far before you get cross-checked in front of the net.
Do you think this is the end of the demonstrations, or do you think
No, this is the beginning. This is the beginning.
I agree.
This is the beginning of us taking notice and standing up and showing through unity, through pride, through devotion, and through common law, we need to take back our communities. Starting from that point and on. We need new governments, which is all coming. I believe the world will know once the alliance is ready to tell us.
Yeah.
I took 2 weeks vacation off to do that.
Good for you.
I did. I did.
Good for you.
You know, and I just thought I had to do it. You know, and I'm glad I did.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I did. I'm
That's
glad
a
I did.
sacrifice.
I think, but it was also a sacrifice of the work that I put in. And what I mean by this is, when this COVID hit in March of last year, of 2020, for 40 days I didn't even see my kids, not knowing what happened here. And it was only a short video too that spun me to understand that I had to get my finger on the pulse of what was going on in 2020. And by May 2020, I woke. And when I woke, I did, but nothing, went back to school. I'm a fucking dropout out of Parkdale, Toronto high school. At high school back in the 60s and the 70s. Education was not my mandate, but at the end of the day, it didn't stop me from providing and feeding my family in this great country that we live in. I had an ability to work for a lot of good organizations. I didn't need a high school diploma to succeed to where I am today, but the tide had changed over time. And those things had changed. Those platforms. Now today you couldn't even be looked at if you didn't have a high school diploma.
Which is crazy, right?
It can't even be looked at. So at the end of the day, the system is what it is. But all I know is that I woke and put my finger on the pulse and went back to school and educated myself on what the corruption in this world, what it was all about, how it started, and where we're at with them today, and also where we're going in the new world. Because as much as I am at peace with what I've learned that is what it was in front of us, that was causing everything in front of us to be a lie, but I'm at peace with it, understanding what it is. And because of that, I've had no fear of facing it in my eyes in front of me. But I'm also learning that the goodness that we're going to be going is also a little scary. And the scary part of that is that we've been so suppressed of the technologies and knowledge that we should have known as humans on this world, that we don't know, and what we're going to learn could be scary too.
Yeah.
Okay? And we have to keep that in heart, because this next transition that we're going to be going through as humanity, we are lucky to be alive. That's all I can say. We are lucky to be alive during this moment.